place our secret podcast. And we don't really tell anyone about this. We just say, we're here live, 2 p.m. Pacific. It's Emil. It's Emil Guillermo. Emil Amok to you. Right here, Emil Amok to you. My takes on all things considerable. The Takeout. We sort of run it like a, like a takeout, like a food truck, or we could be a brick and mortar. You can call us up. We prepare the food. You take our takes. Here's the menu. Here are the news stories of the day. Here are the things that I've read. Here are the things I want to talk about. Here's the takes. And doesn't cost you a thing. We're here Monday through Friday, sometimes live, mostly live at 2 p.m. Pacific, but you can also catch us on the replay when you can watch it at your leisure, as they say. We have we're getting ornamental, right? You got the snowflakes, holidays coming up, right? So today I want to talk about Draymond Green because it's significant. I mean, if you're a Golden State Warrior fans, and most Asian Americans, and this is kind of like an Asian American tilting show, WDAAT, what does an Asian American think? WDAAT. WDAAT. What does an Asian American think? A lot of Asian Americans are either fans of the Golden State Warriors or the Los Angeles Lakers. And when the Lakers were bad, people were drifting toward the Warriors, and the Lakers got a little better. And then anyway, now all the basketball fans in the great state of California, the largest Asian American state, well, now the Kings are coming up, the Sacramento Kings and the LA Clippers. So basketball is a big deal for Asian Americans. So the Draymond story is a big deal because he was suspended, and the details were left for later yesterday. Indefinitely is the decision. The Players Association is in on this. So this is the league saying to the Golden State Warriors, get your act together, and let's see if Draymond can get his act together, because something's got to change. Something's got to happen, because you can't have 3 ejections in the first third of the season, 6 ejections overall. You got a history. You can't have this in the league. I mean, Draymond wants to be a gangster. Is that it? He's got a family, wife, kids. NBA has an image. It's a good league. It's a respectful league, right? They don't like violence. They don't like domestic violence. That's an issue with some sports. They don't like violence on the court. Players consider that this is their showcase. It's their sanctuary. It's where they do their thing. It's not where they get into a mixed martial arts battle with Draymond Green. So I want to talk about that. I talk about AI a lot because it is the thing that you got to get up to speed on, because it's the future. There was a story today about how OpenAI is going to pay Politico, the parent of the news organization Politico, for content, because AI just doesn't discover content on its own. Someone's got to feed in the content, and so apparently AI is saying, okay, we'll pay for rights to get the best content. And this is going to open up the floodgates for other people to say, hey, you're using our stuff on the internet, and you're paraphrasing, but you're using stuff. It's sort of like scholarship, AI scholarship, right? Which is another thing that the academic world is grappling with, because, you can simply say, give me a paper on the Afghanistan war, and then out comes 1,000 words, 2,000 words. Where do they get it from? Wikipedia? So this is maybe a way to slow down AI, because AI, like I said, has to get information from somewhere. If they're willing to pay, if ChatGPT, OpenAI is willing to pay for sources and rights, that will only add to the revolutionary force in terms of money, right? For providers and content creators. But it will also hasten the notion that, hey, you can trust AI, because they're paraphrasing, but maybe AI can give you a sense of where they got their information so you can trust it more. Anyway, that's something. I mean, I'm just noticing AI stuff all the time. Kevin McCarthy is saying he may be looking at AI as his next step as he quits Congress, as he leaves the House. He gives himself a little buffer so he doesn't absolutely leave in disgrace. But he's thinking about AI. So I subscribe to some science magazines, and they talk about, if you're just getting up to snuff about AI and what the future is, I want to read something from that about the AI dystopia that could occur, and what you really need to fear with AI. And it's something from New Science magazine. I'll just briefly read that a little later on the show. Also, Wayne Chung is free. Wayne Chung is an animal rights activist. If you don't know who he is, he was part of a group that went in, saved some animals in Sonoma County, then was arrested, went on trial. He was found guilty. There was some, they misstrategized. They came after them with a different law, so he was found guilty. He had to serve time. He could have served as much as 2 or 3 years, but they let him out after 38 days served. He's out now, free, and his blog is The Simple Heart on Substack, and I like to read from it because it's very reflective. I mean, throughout his stay in jail, through the holidays, through Thanksgiving, he was just very reflective about what it means to be a caged animal activist when you are trying to find a way to save animals and set them free, and now you are caged with other human beings. And he learned a lot about himself and learned a lot about violent behavior, because he was confronted by his cellmate and he had to find a way to deal with that. Anyway, it's all in his Substack, The Simple Heart blog, and it's very interesting. And he writes today that he's free, and I'm going to read from that only because it has some very interesting things to say about the animal rights movement. I'm the host of the PETA podcast. This week we dropped something on vegan desserts, more for the holiday season, but we do other stories, like there's this effort in Brazoria County, Texas, to stop Charles River Labs from starting a monkey sanctuary in that very pristine area of Texas. There's also a podcast, the recent weeks of the PETA podcast, of what 60 Minutes didn't tell you about horse racing and why the horse racing industry it's unclear whether or not this new board, HISA, it's a new board to oversee horse racing, is going to be effective. So, all that on the PETA podcast. Wayne's not on the PETA podcast, but he's here on mine, my secret podcast, Emil, Amok's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. And if you don't know Wayne Chung, you will momentarily. I'll read from his blog. All right. So, once again, let's begin with Draymond Green. When I saw that he was suspended indefinitely, I don't know if you've ever been suspended. There's always ways to look at a suspension to see, well, is it a good suspension? Is it, pro worker? Is it pro, where are they siding? If you're suspended with pay, not so bad. Kind of punitive, but not so bad. You're getting paid. If you're suspended without pay, not good. Not good at all. Now, usually your suspension comes with a time attached. 5 days, 5 games, 10 days, 10, whatever. Depends on the circumstance. Draymond was given an indefinite suspension. And that was a signal to me that, this is not good for the Warriors. It's not good for Draymond, because it says this is your last chance. We're making it indefinite because this is your chance to make it right. Golden State Warriors. This is your chance to make it right, Draymond Green. Well, the Warriors they're in cahoots with Draymond. They've got a financial interest in him. Now that he's not playing, they've got to sour on him a little bit, to the degree that they're a humane organization. They're going to stand by Draymond. But Draymond's a repeat offender. What the heck's wrong with Golden State Warrior management to address this and make sure that Draymond Green gets his act together? So this is the final straw, if it can work. Or will Draymond put on a good face, make it work for a month, and then come back and say, hey, I'm well, go out and then beat up on the first guy because he's angry about something? So I think this is it. And then after this, you're banished from the league. I mean, what Draymond needs, if you ask me, and I've witnessed everything, following his career, following, all the suspensions, from the Jordan Poole punch to the things this year, the Sabonis stomp, the Rudy Gobert chokehold, and now the Nurkic punch. It was an open hand punch. Or let's not call it punch. An open hand strike, a blow to the face, which is potentially more damning than a punch. So I've seen it. I was, look, at Jordan Poole, I was ready to throw Draymond, get him off the team. I was willing to side with Poole because at least Poole scored points. Draymond was a defender, and I got talked into saying, oh yeah, Draymond stay because the Warriors need him. He's a good player. Well, he's really cost them in a lot of ways throughout the years, throughout his career. Stupid, dumb, mental errors. He still, despite that, has managed to win some championships with this team. But I think it's coming apart. I think it's falling apart with this third one, and this is his chance to make it right. What he needs is a little solid meditation, frankly. Starting with loving kindness and lovingness toward oneself before you can offer it to others. But he needs to just be more mindful and in control. Somewhere, and I know this just from experience, somewhere you're taught that, hey, if you speak out, if you're bold, if you're angry, if you are just, in your face, that kind of aggression, that's the way to be. Don't back down. Be aggressive. I know how that happens. I mean, how do you think I adopted the moniker Emil Amok? Although my amokness has been kind of tempered throughout the years. But there's something about going amok when you're heretofore always silent, when you're never expressing yourself, when you're never out there. Going amok is actually a virtue. And I saw that as true 100% of the time, when in fact it's only true a fraction of the time. Because at some point you have to be mature. At some point you have to be the adult in the room. At some point you just have to grow up. And I think that's been one of my issues. That somewhere along the line I thought, oh, angry, being amok, that's my virtue, that's my thing. And I forgot that, in dollops, infrequently, but just frequently enough so people know you're there. But as I get older and more mature, I realize, sometimes I cost myself by being angry, by being amok, by being out of control. Being out of control is not the point. To be thrust into a murderous frenzy, metaphorically, as is the definition of amok. That was not who I was, but it was how I presented myself. So even though I'm not a big basketball player, and Green is undersized for a center, but he's fairly big, I relate. I relate to him. He's asked to be the enforcer. He's asked to be the tough guy on a team that is small and finesse oriented, which is weird because for being small and finesse oriented, they throw the ball around and turn it over all too many times. I mean, just too many times in a game. 25 times, I think, the other day. And it's a difference between them winning and losing. So they're not the finesse team, but they are a small team, and Draymond's the big guy in a small team. So I'm a Warrior fan, but I would like to see him get some help, and he really needs to be in control. Just like the Warriors need to be in control of the ball, they need to be in control of whatever their emotional, sense is, because something triggers him off. Something triggers off Draymond Green where he feels like he's got to get physical. And if he can just get in the zone and stay in the zone being the zone of physical, but not extra physical play, just playing basketball as well as he can, and get out of that the mental area where he is then becomes triggered. So you got defenders holding him, the opponents holding him down, trying to defend him. He reacts violently by flailing his arms, flailing a foot, throwing an open hand. He's got to guard against that. How do you do that? Like I said, mindfulness would help Draymond Green. I give him some guided meditation. I'm sure he meditates or has tried. I'm sure maybe he's worked on himself, but he's got to stay in the moment, and he's got to keep himself from those inner explosions that end up into physical violence. Because it's not good. I mean, he's got to do it this time. And I think that the indefinite part of the suspension is that message. Tim Kawakami is a columnist for the Athletic, which is now owned by the New York Times. It's actually replaced the New York Times' sports department. And he wrote a column saying the NBA is sick and tired of Draymond Green, which should get the Warriors thinking about an exit. That could be, if you're a Draymond Green fan or a Golden State Warriors fan, it could be anathema. How can we get rid of Draymond Green? It's easy. You say goodbye. You say we're tired of it, and we're not going to have it in a professional sports organization. There's no place for this. I mean, there are things that, without question, he'd be gone right away. I mean, there are certain things that if you did, I mean, if you were a convicted pedophile, out of the league. The league doesn't want headlines. The league doesn't want trouble. The league wants everyone to be seen as these good citizens of the world, not just the United States, not just of your locality, but of the world. You're ambassadors for basketball. So violence, not a good look. That's why the suspension is indefinite. Otherwise, the players' union would have had a say. And they'd say, hey, look, this is not fair. They were in on this. And I think if they weren't, it probably would have been maybe a season suspension. maybe even because of his record, seeing Draymond Green thrown out of basketball. And let's face it, without basketball, Draymond Green is nothing. I mean, he's what he is as a podcaster, broadcaster because of what he did or what he was doing on the basketball court. But without basketball, he's nothing. I mean, he'd have to go out and prove himself in another field. Would he get the breaks as a sportscaster, sports analyst if he wasn't in the NBA? So, it's not far-fetched when people say, hey, this is about his career, about saving Draymond's career, and Draymond as a human being. Human being comes first. So there should be an attempt of the Golden State Warriors, his teammates, to try to help him, try to make sure that Draymond gets the help he needs. And then, of course, the big lifting is on Draymond's part. But this being a business, I like what Tim Kawakami wrote. He said, is the NBA trying to give the Warriors a way to get rid of Draymond Green sooner rather than much later and many millions of dollars down the road? And if this is at all true, should the Warriors start to think about it? My answer, probably yes on both questions. Probably yes. I say definitely yes. Look, I was ready to get rid of Draymond Green back with the Jordan Poole thing last year. Like I said, Draymond Green, good player that he is also a cancer to this team. He's cost his team wins. He's cost his team championships. Go back to, they would have won at least one or two more championships if it weren't for the just kind of the inexplicable decisions made on Draymond's part. Kawakami says, there are only so many times the NBA can throw a lightning bolt at Draymond using the words repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts before everyone gets the larger point. Or more specifically, before owner Joe Lacob, general manager Mike Dunleavy Jr., and all other Warriors stakeholders pick up the very extremely extravagantly emphasized theme. Repeated references to a repeated history of unsportsmanlike acts. One last April when Draymond stomped on Sacramento's Domantas Sabonis' chest during the playoff, got a one-game suspension. Another referee a few weeks ago when Draymond grabbed Minnesota's Rudy Gobert, got him a 5-game suspension. Wednesday, Draymond was hit with an indefinite suspension for striking Phoenix's Jusuf Nurkic in Tuesday's loss, which included the third time in 7 months that NBA Executive Vice President Joe Dumars, one of Green's childhood idols, used a version of those words in the stern press release. Look, I think Kawakami is right. The Warriors should move on. He says probably move on. I think they definitely should move on. And if they do definitely move on, they might be able to salvage the season. Because Steph Curry isn't getting any younger. They need to get a big man to replace Draymond. They don't have, Kevon Looney's not playing as well, but he's a big. If they get another big, they can salvage this season and maybe go further than anyone thinks. But the slumping players that they have, Andrew Wiggins and Klay Thompson, they've got to step up. Or maybe now is the time to just get rid of these stars, build around Stephen Curry, and behind the players that they have now who are functional and good. Gary Payton II, I think, is still injured, but Kuminga, Moses Moody, trade for some better pieces to accentuate Stephen Curry. There's still a way out. But it's sad because this was a top sports story. The top sports story isn't about the play, it's about the off court antics or the off court discussion about violence on the court. Violence on the court. So I was more sympathetic last year when I wanted Green out, and I was siding more with Jordan Poole. Now I see what a fool Jordan Poole was, and they made it so okay, maybe Draymond, you keep Draymond, but every time you keep Draymond, he does something stupid like what he did this week. Warriors better seek a solution for the team in the long haul. Okay, I want to talk about AI because it's something that, like I said, it's everywhere now. You can't escape seeing people preparing for an AI future. But one thing that people don't get, they just think, oh, well, AI, it must be like talking to Siri or talking to Alexa, right? The robots, they'll play your records, they'll do things digitally. But here's something in the New Scientist which caught my eye. I want to share with you. It says, if you ask the A1 powered chatbot ChatGPT what the rise of artificial intelligence means for humanity's future, it proffers a measured response concluding that, quote, the future of humanity with AI is not predetermined, and its impact will depend on how AI is developed, regulated, and integrated into various aspects of society, which is a broad way of saying it depends. It depends on who's feeding the information into the AI, who has the ultimate control on the on-off switch of AI. And even New Scientist says sensible stuff, but let's be honest, evasive. If you really want to get to grips with how the era of AI will pan out for us, you're better off asking Scott Aronson and Boaz Barak, computer scientists at the University of Texas at Austin and Harvard University, respectively. They have already gone to the trouble of boiling down the lengthy discourse on the matter to a handful of outcomes and given each a whimsical name. Our goal was to map out the scenarios that people aren't currently talking about, said Aronson. This is important. How is AI going to play out? This is what they said. Discussing at length over dinner, they ended up convinced that just 5 future worlds cover all the possible endpoints of our development of AI. The pair then wrote a post on Aronson's blog, hoping that the 5 worlds of AI would help people in the field talk meaningfully to each other about goals and regulation. We took a humorous tone, but we are serious about trying to ground the debate, said Barak. Now, this is important because, I've written about this on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. And I said, if AI goes out of control, it could mean the end of humanity. Because if you put AI in charge of weapons and all the AI sees is not, are you going to kill a human being? Are you killing the enemy? The AI responds, the software, to the idea, what must the AI do to fulfill the mission? And if a human gets in the way, bye-bye human being. Robots making the decision for a human life. We're there already. And as more nations adopt more advanced AI machines, we're going to get into AI wars, right? So what are the scenarios? These guys, Aronson and Barak, say, here's a vaguely choose-your-own-adventure style exploration of the 5 worlds that they point out, 5 possibilities for AI. Okay, the journey to these 5 worlds begins with a simple question. Will AI's potential fizzle away to nothing? Does it just fizzle away? It doesn't seem that way at the moment, but the match, or the march of AI could plausibly be halted by its voracious hunger for resources. It is possible that all the electricity and water needed to run and cool AI servers will eventually bring about a ban on further development. Oh, we got to hope for that, right? It's just like cryptocurrency. You need a lot of computing power to develop cryptocurrency. Of course, you're going to need computer power to develop AI. It may just fizzle out. Or, the article says, we might run out of data on which to train future AI models, meaning the technology will never achieve the game-changing power it promises, creating a world Aronson and Brock called AI fizzle. They both think this is unlikely, but, pair that with the news today that OpenAI is paying the copyright holders for information that AI uses. They're paying Politico, the news source. This is how AI gets smarter. What are you feeding AI? So look for more of that, where AI is gobbling up resources, but then maybe AI runs out of money and they fizzle out. Okay, so that's one scenario. Fizzlandia, as it's been called. But we also have to face other questions. Does civilization continue to develop in a recognizable way? If the answer is yes, Aronson and Barak suggest we could end up in one of two further scenarios. One is good. They call it Futurama, after the animated TV series. And the other, not so good, called A1 or AI Dystopia. AI Dystopia is recognizable from countless science fiction stories, most famously George Orwell's 1984. Orwell. Here, a government uses deep surveillance to extract unquestioning compliance from its citizens. Big brother, right? Looking at us. Inequalities and biases become entrenched. The workplace is miserable and employees are poorly paid, apart from a tiny elite. People have said that the scenario of 1984 was never really feasible because you could never have enough people watching all of the screens. With AI, says Aronson, that is possible. If we do arrive here, it won't actually be AI's fault, because powerful technology is only ever an amplifier of existing issues, he says. Some people would say that we shouldn't create a technology if we know that it's going to be used to do bad things. But if you're not going to invent anything that can be used for evil, you simply won't invent anything. Which means evil is always a possibility. What it then requires is who is going to regulate the technology. Barack is hoping that AI's development leads to the better Futurama style, the best of all possible worlds. It's basically the scenario where things are like today, but better. Here, AI is used to reduce poverty and ensure that none of humanity has access to, or that more of humanity has access to food, healthcare, education, and economic opportunities. A better now through AI. That sounds great. There might be occasional harm caused by human malice or negligence, but human inhabitants of this world are likely to be pretty pleased with their lot overall. And it could get even better than that. Aronson is hoping that he might one day exist in an AI-led utopia that he and Barack called Singularia. Singularity is that point where AI is smarter than humans. So if we're in Singularia, it's all humans with other sentience. It says this will happen if AI's impact is so profound that it renders our future world unrecognizable in a good way. Here you'll be living alongside AIs that are effectively a new superintelligent species. that takes over the running of civilization. This is where we run into trouble. We have sentient robots, smarter or as smart as humans, running the world because humans are too lazy. That doesn't sound like a good path. It says, luckily they are benevolent gods, tolerant of the planet's poor, puny humans. Oh yeah, it's a stretch to say they're going to be benevolent gods. They solve our natural problems, providing us with unlimited abundance, taking on many of our humdrum tasks, and providing entertainment for our newly understimulated minds. It's effectively an AI-created heaven, said Aronson. Boy, now wouldn't that be good, huh? You have your humans are too lazy. AIs take control. They entertain us. They take care of all the things we don't want to do. But what, they ask, if all-powerful AIs aren't so generous? And that's where we come to what they call the paper clipopolis. The paper clipopolis. What is that? Well, in 2003, a mathematician and ethicist, Elazar Yudkowsky, co-founder of the Machine Intelligence Research Institute, MRI, in California, MIRI rather, described a thought experiment where humanity tasked an AI with improving the production of some innocuous thing, paper clips, say. If the specifications aren't properly through and through, the AI could end up wiping out humanity because our species was standing in the way of harvesting all Earth's resources and maybe those of other worlds to make more and more better paper clips. What happens is the AI only seeks to make better paper clips, and if human beings are in the way of that mission, there are scenarios where AI will do something to harm humans in its way. Think about that. Because it's all about the mission, right? This is one of the reasons why when AI is used in weaponry, who's got the override switch? It takes time to shift policy and regulation. The gears of government grind slowly, says a communications manager at MIRI. We do worry that we will run out of time before meaningful legislation can be created, which is really a problem because it means, if you think Congress is going to regulate this stuff, yeah, but what if Congress is like clueless? There's some meetings now, and unfortunately, the smartest people in the room tend to be people like Elon Musk. And you know how stable he is. Aronson, this article says, I'm not a believer in highly extreme things like singularia or paperclip apocalypse, but I do think it's important to keep an open mind, which is the way to look at AI, that there's room for good, a lot of good, but room for a lot of bad if it's unregulated. And that was the topic of my column on the ALDEF blog, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, a couple of weeks ago. Who's in control? We don't know. We don't know yet. So that's just to fill you in on AI. That AI is an exciting technology with some great possibilities for both good and evil. And we got to keep awake to make sure that the sentient beings still have a sense of conscience and ethics. Oh, I think no more ethical than the human beings who program them in the first place. But we have to be concerned about that. All right, we got Futurama, and we got Paper Clipopolis, and I just want to read one thing about my. I like Wayne Chung, and I read this because Wayne Chung is. I gotta find it. Wayne Chung he's a dedicated activist, animal rights activist, and he spent time in jail. And when you spend time in jail for trying to do the right thing, I mean, that's a, you don't see many people like that, right? So Wayne Chung writes A Simple Heart, a blog on Substack. He says, I'm free unexpectedly. After being warned by my lawyers that the judge might seek the maximum sentence, 42 months, I was instead released on Saturday, December 9th, after a mere 38-day stay. I went straight from jail to gather signatures for the ballot initiative to ban factory farms in Sonoma County. That's his new thing. It's important that the industry sees that repressing activists will only increase our resolve. Then I went home to see Oliver. We had an event in San Francisco the next day with Oliver present, naturally, and this week I've been working on reacclimating to the world outside. Many of the things I took for granted, being able to move beyond a 50 square foot space, see the sun, or find space where I can meditate in silence, are available to me again. I am finding myself with a new appreciation for the things that are most important, but often ignored in life. The people I love, like Oliver. Most of all, in many ways, it's been a beautiful experience despite all the hardships I and the people around me have faced. But this fight has just begun. The government and industry continue to crack down hard on activists and supporters of animal rights, both with new charges filed against Zoe Rosenberg, Rocky Chow, and Conrad De Jesus. Rocky Chow, I know Rocky Chow. And with the upcoming Ridgeland trial, another trial involving animal rights activists, there are also unprecedented opportunities to make change, as the loss in Sonoma offers new avenues for establishing precedents that could change the face of animal rights. So he's talking about a couple of things: establishing animal personhood and make animals visible to the law. He says, while the guilty verdict in Sonoma County was a difficult blow in the long run, this outcome allows us to potentially achieve an outcome even better than acquittal, winning on appeal and thereby establishing a binding precedent for animal personhood. Personhood is what makes someone visible within our legal system. Only persons can bring legal claims or have the basic rights guaranteed by our constitutional system. And the fight to establish a precedent for animal personhood is among the most important fronts in the struggle for animal rights. That's important because a lot of times they view animals as they would an incompetent human being, like someone who is mentally disabled. So they're sort of in that same bailiwick of people who cannot fend for themselves legally, so they have guardians. They're essentially wards of guardianship. If animals had personhood, animal rights would have it would be a new evolution of animal rights. So Wayne's right there. And number two, winning the right to rescue. My trial in Sonoma County was just the latest battle in the fight for the right to rescue. On the day of my sentencing, Zoe and others were arrested for rescuing animals from local factory farms. This idea of the right to, that's what he was placed in jail for, trying to rescue animals from their fate. And that's got to change. the right to rescue has to be a thing where if you see an animal endangered in a factory farm, you have a right to go in and take that animal away and free that animal. So all these things Wayne writes in his blog, A Simple Heart. He talks about shining a light on disinformation because it's hard to get information from the factory farm industries. Rebuilding a movement on the front lines, meaning the front lines of activists who then engage in the law. That's how you rebuild the movement. And let's see, what else does he say? Some other things here. Defending against efforts to, the deep pockets of corporates go after the little pockets of the animal nonprofits. And even when the big animal nonprofits are around, they have to fight smartly, strategically. He also adds rebuilding a personal life because he's been in jail for 38 days. Wayne Sean. Read more on his blog, A Simple Heart. I have to admit, I read his blog every time he had a post while he was in prison or county jail, Sonoma County Jail. And he talks about the violence he faced. He talks about how he had to relate, how he recognized the way to relate to people when he was incarcerated. It's worth a read, A Simple Heart, on Substack. All right, that's it for me. I got to get out of here. I hope you enjoyed some of the things I shared on AI, on Draymond Green. I think, look, I'm ready for the Golden State Warriors to do something drastic, like say, Draymond, you're gone. Thank you. We appreciate this. We're going to end the dynasty on our own terms. We're going to build a new one. It doesn't involve you. And then they need to get somebody. They need to get someone in a trade. And maybe some team will trade a young star for Draymond. I don't know. Maybe. Someone to work with Stephen Curry. I'm sure the Warriors might be able to get someone from the Lakers, a number of the bench Lakers for Draymond and draft picks. And Draymond will go and play with LeBron James, his buddy. That's one scenario I've seen being tossed around. But certainly there should be someone who wants a future Hall of Famer who's disruptive. But you see what happens, you go through this thing and your value just is shot. Anyway, I'm only watching the last quarter of Warrior games now because I can't, like I said, trial separation for the Warriors. Okay, look, that's it for today's show. Back again tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have our friend Dan Gonzalez in to talk about the week. What a week it's been. And, for not just the college presidents, Claudine Gay still under some pressure. People still want her out, even though she has gotten the support from her university, the Harvard University Board. So let's see what happens there as she tries to prove to the public that Harvard made the right decision in keeping her on. I mean, that's part of it. I think the pressure from Congress was BS, and it was, a certain amount of it was public pressure on account of the hearings, and fortunately Harvard was strong enough to outlast this. But if it was stronger by a quarter in the future, if there was enough people out there saying, oh, this is no good, Harvard's out there to uphold the brand. And You know, it's not a good brand when your president is not forthright and strong on calls on genocide or is misunderstood. That's got to be cleaned up. And the only way you can clean it up is with strong actions that will show that you got it. All right. So back again tomorrow. Catch us on YouTube at Emil Amok 1. YouTube at Emil Amok 1. You can also catch the PETA podcast there. FB.com, Facebook.com/EmilGuillermo.media. You do shorthand, FB.com/EmilGuillermo.media. Also on AMOK.com and on Twitter at Emil Amok. Hey, thank you for watching. I'll tell you, if Draymond wanted meditation lessons from me, I'd give him some. I mean, I don't dislike the guy. I just think that he's being awfully selfish. You know, really jeopardizing the chances of the Warriors really over the last 2 years. He's cost him one championship before, and then last year, and then possibly this year, unless the Warriors can rebound. All right, a little meditation would help. Yeah, just being in the moment. Just like letting all the things that happen that trigger you off, letting it go, letting it be, being equanimous to those things, and just being free so that you can be in your zone. That makes you the best athlete. That's what I told Draymond. Don't react. Don't react. It only leads to suffering. And it starts with little self-love, and then showing the love to others. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Till next time.